Hello and welcome, I'm your Code Monkey. In this lecture, let's add a simple beginning state to our game. So right now we can play the game. All of the mechanics, everything works perfectly, it's all been implemented. However, in the beginning of the game, it just starts right away as it loads. There's no start, no countdown, no time for the player to get ready. So let's sort that out with a simple countdown. Let's begin by making a general game manager script to handle all of our general game states. So let's create a brand new C# script. And now here you could use the name game manager, so you could use this name. However, for some reason Unity likes to add this custom icon when a script is named exactly game manager. Personally, I don't like this. I don't want it to be a different icon. I want this script to look and behave just like any other one of my scripts. So personally, I don't like this, but if it doesn't bother you, then go ahead, use it. Doesn't really change anything, just a visual. But in my case, I prefer to give it a different name, so sometimes I call it game handler, or other times just something related to this game, like for example the kitchen game manager. And just like that, it won't have that custom icon. Just need to go inside and rename this to kitchen game manager. Okay, save the script. And alright, now let's make a game object to run it. So a new game object with the same name. Let's attach the kitchen game manager and reset transform. Okay, let's open. Now here we're going to define all of the various game states that our game can be in. So for that, let's define an enum. So a simple enum, call it state. And for the various states, let's say we are first of all waiting to start. Then we are on countdown to start. Then the game is playing, and then we have a game over. Okay, so these are our states. Let's do a private void awake. And on awake, let's set the state. So we need to store a state for our state. And on awake, we set the state equals, and let's begin on waiting to start. By the way, the point with this waiting to start state will also be very important in the next video covering multiplayer. Basically, we're going to wait until everyone is connected before we start the actual countdown. But over here, for now, we're just going to wait a little bit on the waiting to start. Then we're going to trigger the countdown, and then after some time, trigger the game playing state. So pretty much all of these states are going to be time-based. So let's make a simple timer. So a private float for the waiting to start timer. Let's begin on something like 1f. So we just wait for 1 second. Then let's make a private void update. And let's make a state machine just like we've done previously. So do a switch on our state. In case we are on state.waiting to start. If so, then let's go into the waiting to start timer, count it down by time.delta time. Then if the waiting to start timer, if it is under 0. If so, then let's move into the state, equals state dot, let's go into the countdown to start. Okay, so that's it, and the other states are going to be pretty much exactly the same, so let's just copy this. So we have the waiting to start, then the countdown to start, then we have the game playing, and finally we have the game over, and that one doesn't have anything, so just like this. Like I said, we could reuse the same timer, but let's write our code nice and proper, so let's make different timers for each. So let's make 3 timers. So we're going to have the countdown to start timer. So countdown. For this one, let's default into 3. So we're going to wait 3 seconds before we start. And then the game playing timer. And for this one, let's put it something short just for testing. So let's put it just test. And then down here, let's just use them. So on the countdown, let's count down this timer. On the game playing, count down this timer. When the countdown ends, we go into game playing. And when the game playing ends, we go into game over. Alright, so that's our super basic state machine. Just a bunch of timers, super simple. Let's do a quick log just to see. So over here, just a debug.log, and let's just print out the current state. Okay, so just like this, let's test. And yep, right away we are waiting to start. After 1 second, going to countdown. Then after 3 seconds, going to game playing. And now if we wait for 10 seconds, after 10 seconds, we should be able to see just a little bit. And yep, there you go, we've got our game over. Okay, great. All the logic is working. Although we actually didn't change anything. Technically the game right now is on a game over, but everything still works the same as previously, so I can still play, I can still do everything. So let's sort that. When we are in any state other than the game playing state, we don't want the player to be able to interact with anything. We want to leave it movement, because that's usually nice and fun, but we don't want it to be able to interact, pick up objects, or do anything, so let's do that. Basically over here on the game manager, let's just expose a function, so public bool, let's call this is game playing. Then over here, pretty simple, just return if the state equals state.gameplaying. That's it. So now we can go into the player script. So over here on the player script, let's go down into the interaction function. So over here we've got the interact alternate and the interact. And on both of these, basically let's just ask if the game is in the game playing state. If so, we want to interact, but if not, then we don't want to do anything. So to access the game manager, we could add a peer serialized field, or as usual, let's just make a nice singleton. So peer public static of type kitchen game manager, the instance, make a public get and a private set. Then down here on awake, let's set the instance equals this, okay? So now over here on the player, let's just go into the kitchen game manager, access the instance, and test is game playing. And we're going to do an if the game is not playing. So if we are not playing, we want to stop this, so let's just do a return. So if the game is not playing, the code is going to stop executing here, and same thing on the interaction. So just like that, we won't be able to interact with anything once we are not in the game playing state. Okay, so here we are, waiting to start. Nope, I cannot pick up anything. Countdown to start. Nope, I can't. And as soon as we go into game playing, yep, now I can't interact, so I can cut a bunch of things. And as soon as it goes into game over state, there you go, currently in game over state. So now if I try to interact, nope, can't do it. Okay, awesome. Everything works perfectly. So in terms of logic, this is really it. There's nothing else we need to do. But of course, right now the player would have no clue as to why sometimes they can grab and sometimes they can't, so let's add a proper visual. First, let's add a visual to the starting countdown. So let's do that as a canvas element. So let's go inside our canvas, create an empty game object, name this the game start countdown UI. Let's press F to focus on the object, press 2 to turn this into 2D. Okay, so let's see. Now over here, we really just need a text object, so let's leave this one anchored on the center. Let's put the width and height both on 0, we don't need that. And then let's go inside, create a new text object, call this the countdown text. And then inside, let's just put a number, so just a 3. Let's put the width and height both on 0. Then down here, let's put it in bold on a really big font size, so let's say something like 250, okay, really nice big number. Then let's also put it centered and down the middle. Okay, that's great, we've got our nice big countdown number. Also, by the way, when using TextMesh Pro, we can easily add a whole bunch of effects. If we look down here, we have the default TextMesh Pro material, and over here we can add an outline, an underlay, and so on. So that's really great. However, there's one very crucial thing. When you want to add some effects, always remember that the effects are being applied to the material, meaning any text objects that are sharing this material, all of them will modify. So for the most part, usually you don't want to modify the default material. If you do, then everything using this default material will change. Like for example, I want to add a nice thick outline to this one, but over here I've got some regular text that is also using the default material. So if I now add an outline, and I increase the thickness, and if there you go, those also got an outline as well as this. And if I want to dilate and make it quite a lot bigger, there you go, all of them modify, because all of them are sharing the same material. So usually you don't want to modify the default material. If you want to add some kind of special effects, always make sure to create a brand new material beforehand. So over here, let's remove the outline, put it back on the dilation, and let's go up here to create the brand new material. First, we need to find our font. So over here on the font asset, we can just click on it, and we can see it over here highlighted on the project window. So it's inside the TextMesh Pro folder, the resources, fonts, and so on. So here is the default font, and inside this one is the font that we're using. Now in this font, there's a nice little arrow icon, and inside we can see the default material. So let's duplicate this material. Although it's important, make sure you duplicate the material and not the font. So with this material selected, I'm going to press Ctrl D, and there you go, it duplicates the material. And over here, let's give it some name. So let's say this is the material that I want to use for the start countdown. So there you go, just like this. Also, one very important thing, the name of the material needs to include the font name, otherwise it won't show up. For example, if I get rid of this, the Liberation Sans SDF, if I name the material just like this, and now I'll look over here on the countdown text, look on TextMesh Pro, here is the drop-down menu for selecting the material, and over here note how that one does not show up. So it is extremely important, in order for it to show up in here, it needs to have the same starting name. So over here, if I rename this material, put Liberation Sans SDF and then the name, and now back in here, now look, and yep, now I do see my material. Okay, so that's great. And now over here we can add what kind of effects we want, and it will only affect this one and not any others. Okay, so for this one, let's add a nice outline, and let's make some nice thick numbers. So over here on the dilation, let's dilate by quite a little bit. Then for the outline color, let's put it maybe on a blue, something a bit like this. Okay, let's push it back just a little bit. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Now, if you want, you could add even more effects to this. I made another video covering how to use custom textures in your font. Doing that, you can just import the font directly into Photoshop and edit it with all kinds of effects. For example, that method is exactly what I used in my game Hyper Knight to make the hit counter look really nice. I also have a tutorial specifically on that. So if you want even more custom text, definitely go ahead and watch those videos. But anyways, here we have our countdown text looking pretty nice. Now the number itself will be written through code, so let's do that. Let's go into our scripts, into our UI folder, create a brand new C# script for the game start countdown UI. Okay, let's select the parent object and attach the script. Now here, first thing we need is a reference to that text object. So let's add a serialized field, private. And again, remember what I mentioned a couple of lectures ago with regards to the types. So we want text mesh pro UGUI, we want this one. So it's going to be our countdown text. And now for updating this text, basically we just need to know the game state. So we need to know when the countdown should show up. And as usual, let's use some nice events. So over here on the kitchen game manager, let's fire an event whenever the state changes. So a public event handler. Let's call it on state changed. Okay, just like this. No need for the arguments. So let's go down here. Whenever the state changes, let's just invoke this event. So invoke this event args.empty. So we change in there, and change down there. Okay, that's it. So now over here on the game start countdown, let's do a private void start. And on start, let's go into the kitchen game manager, access the instance, listen to the on state change event. As usual, write some nice clean code. So let's rename this to the kitchen game manager. So when the state changes, we basically want to show this if we are on the countdown to start. So let's go here to the kitchen game manager and let's make another function. So public bool is countdown to start active. And we just return if the state equals the state.countdown to start. Okay, so that's a nice simple function. And on the UI script, if the kitchen game manager, if this one dot is countdown to start active, if so, then let's show. If not, then let's hide. So else, let's do a hide. So let's make these functions. So private void show and a private void hide. And on this, let's just do the usual thing. So game object set active into true, or over here set it into false. And on start, right after we subscribe to the event, let's also hide it by default. Okay, so that's the basic logic for showing or hiding it. And now for the timer text. Technically over here, whilst inside the countdown to start, we could fire an event on every single update. That would work, but it would have some unnecessary overhead. So instead, another option is just make a function to expose it. So let's go here, make a public, return a float, get the countdown to start timer. And we just return the countdown to start timer, very simple. So then over here on the UI script, we can just make a regular private void update. And on update, go into the countdown text in order to set the text. And let's go into the kitchen game manager and let's get the countdown to start timer and just do a toString. Okay, so that's it, super simple. So on update, we're going to constantly update the timer. So let's see if this works. Back here in the editor, let's just make sure to drag the countdown text reference and let's hit on play. And okay, waiting to start, and after a bit, yep, there you go, there's the number, it's currently on countdown, and now the game is playing. So the show and hide did work, although the number seemed quite a bit odd. That's because over here on the settings, we have wrapping enabled, so let's just quickly disable this, and let's test again. So there we are, waiting to start, and there you go, there's our countdown, 3, 2, 1, 0, and there you go, game playing. Okay, so it did work. Now of course, as it comes to the visuals, it depends on what you want. For example, if you want to limit the decimals, you can use over here the toString. This one can include all kinds of string formats. For example, for displaying just 2 decimal places, you can add the string format f2. Let's see what this looks like. Waiting for the countdown, and there you go. Now it does show with 2 decimals. Okay, so this is one approach. Alternatively, another format you can use is number sign, point, number. And let's see this one. And yep, there you go, now it looks like this. So as you can see, there's lots of things you can play around with when it comes to the toString formats. But in our case, I don't really want any decimals, I really just want to see whole numbers. So for that, let's just seal out this number. So a mathf.seal, let's seal this one out, and then just do a toString. Okay, let's see. So wait a bit, and we got 3, 2, and 1, and there you go, the game is playing. Alright, awesome! So here we have our waiting to start and the countdown to start. All of that logic is working perfectly. Now the next thing we need is to handle the game end, so let's do that in the next lecture.